Welcome to the Wealth Wisdom, where money has history and knowledge becomes power.
Have you ever noticed something strange? Some nations rise to wealth almost overnight, while others, even those overflowing with oil, gold, fertile land, and millions of smart, hardworking people, remain stuck in poverty for generations. Why does that happen? And here's the question that exposes everything. If almost every country on Earth is in debt, then who are they in debt to? This is not conspiracy. This is not politics. This is a system powerful enough to lift nations up or quietly crush them without firing a single bullet. Today, we are going to uncover the silent hand, the architecture of global finance that influences inflation, recessions, economic booms, wars, and even the collapse of empires. And the most shocking part? This system did not begin with governments. It started with private moneymakers, individuals who never ran for office, yet shaped the modern world more than presidents, kings, and revolutions combined. Chapter 1. The Hidden Origin of Debt Money. To understand the silent hand, we have to go back to a world before banks, before dollars, before the very concept of national currency. There was a time when money had real, physical value: gold, silver, precious metals, things you could hold. For thousands of years, kingdoms used gold to trade, pay soldiers, and build armies. But gold had one problem. It was heavy. Moving, it was slow, risky, and expensive. So merchants found a simpler way. They stored gold in secure vaults, and instead of handing each other gold, they began exchanging paper receipts that represented the gold. People trusted the paper. It was easier, faster, safer. This was the birth of paper money. But then something subtle, almost invisible, happened. People started trading the receipts so often that most of them never returned to the vault to collect the gold. And the vault owners, the early bankers, noticed something. People trust the paper more than the gold itself. So they asked themselves a dangerous question. What if we print more receipts than the amount of gold we actually have? No one would know, and they could lend those extra receipts and charge interest on them. Money started to be created not from gold, but from debt. This was the moment everything changed. Money stopped representing value. Money became a promise, a claim, a debt. And whoever controlled the creation of this debt controlled everything. Chapter 2. The Rise of the Banking Families. From this realization came some of the most powerful families in history. They were not royalty. They were not generals. They did not sit on thrones. They were financiers. One of the most well-known examples is the Rothschild family. They understood a truth so powerful it became their legacy. The one who controls the money supply controls the nation. Not the king, not the parliament, not the citizens, the one who controls the flow of money. During the Napoleonic Wars, something remarkable happened. Wars require money. A lot of money. If you could fund both sides, you didn't just profit. You determined the winner, and, more importantly, you owned the loser. By the early 1800s, banking families weren't just servicing governments. They were influencing them. Because when a government falls into debt, it has one solution: raise taxes on its people to repay the lenders. And that is when the silent pattern began. Nations borrow money. Private banks profit. Citizens pay the interest through taxes. The people work. The government borrows. The bankers collect. A silent arrangement. A silent hand. The central bank. The silent hand goes public. As debt-based money spread, bankers pushed for something bigger. A formal institution to legalize their system. The central bank. But here's the twist. A central bank is not truly part of the government. It only appears to be. Most central banks operate as private entities that lend money to governments, with interest. Let's make this simple. The government does not print money. The government borrows money from the central bank. The central bank creates that money out of nothing. How? By typing numbers into a computer. This system is called fractional reserve banking. Here's how it works. A bank receives $1. It is allowed to lend $10, $50, sometimes even $100 based on that single dollar. The money loaned never existed before. It is created as debt. This means the more debt there is, the more money exists. For the system to survive, debt must always grow. It can never be fully repaid. If all debts were paid tomorrow, there would be no money left in circulation. This is the silent hand, invisible but everywhere. When money lost its meaning. The most important shift in modern financial history happened in 1971. President Richard Nixon announced that the U.S. dollar would no longer be backed by gold. From that moment forward, money became pure trust, a belief, a number on a screen. Governments could now print as much currency as they wanted, and central banks could lend unlimited amounts of debt. This was the birth of infinite money, and when money became infinite, prices stopped being stable. Savings lost their power. Wealth became harder to hold. Inflation became permanent. Your grandparents could buy a house with one salary. You can't, not because houses changed, but because the value of money changed. The pattern repeats today. Look around. The United States owes over $35 trillion. Japan owes more than $12 trillion. Europe is drowning in debt. Pakistan, Egypt, Argentina, Ghana, Nigeria, all negotiating bailouts. Rich nations, poor nations, strong economies, weak economies, all in debt. Why? Because the system is designed that way. Debt, money, no debt, no money. And when a country can no longer repay its loans, who steps in? The IMF, the World Bank. They offer help, but with conditions. Sell state-owned companies, increase taxes, cut public services, open markets to foreign control. This is not assistance, this is ownership. Debt is the new colonialism. When nations lose control. Once a country becomes dependent on outside loans, it loses the ability to make decisions for itself. It no longer controls its food supply, its fuel, its currency, its industries, even the cost of living for its people. Those decisions are now influenced not by elected leaders, but by creditors. A nation can have land, culture, people, minerals, farms, ports, technology, but if it does not control its money, it controls nothing. Wars are no longer fought with armies. They are fought with debt. Why no one stops the system? So why doesn't the world change this? Because most people never see the system. Most people think money is printed. Banks loan the money they have. Debt is just something the government handles. But once you see the pattern, you can't unsee it. Money, teacher, debt. Debt requires interest. Interest requires taxes. Taxes come from the people. So who works for whom? The people work to pay taxes. The government uses taxes to pay interest. The central bank collects interest forever. The silent hand earns without creating anything. 3 takeaways. 1. Money today is not real. It has no intrinsic value. It is backed only by debt and belief. 2. Nations do not control their own economies. The institutions managing debt hold the real power. 3. The system survives only through silence. It works because people do not see it. Final warning. The global financial system is reaching a breaking point. Debt is growing faster than productivity. Prices are rising faster than wages. And nations are becoming more dependent, not more independent. Every system built on infinite debt eventually collapses. When that moment comes, the world will divide into 2 groups: those who understand the system and adapt, and those who do not, and suffer for it. Which one will you be? If this opened your eyes, if you think more people need to understand how the world really works, share this video, leave a comment, subscribe to join the conversation, because awareness is the first step to freedom. The silent hand is powerful, but knowledge is more powerful still. The story continues.